a half a turn, and then it's loose enough to get a nut driver. So 5 and 7, and you don't need deep well for anything, and then box wrenches. And on the WMS computers, we get a lot of computers in for repair, and it still has the cover here, and it's all bent to crap because people can't get their tools to these two nuts that hold that cover on. Again, open in, and there's two different sizes. There's a quarter inch and a 7/16. Why they changed somewhere down the line is beyond me.
I just use one of those flexible.
Yeah.
I use a wrench because you can't get a nut driver on this nut on the closest edge because one, there's a bump here, and two, it's right up next to the input. So open end wrench, and then you can't get an open end wrench if they tightened it up and they left that 8-sided nut in a position you can't get an open end wrench on. Then you use the closed end wrench. I think it's a 12 point, and it will start anywhere on it, but at least you can break it free.
I have a real miniature ratchet set, and again with the small, long, deep well socket is perfect.
I started out with that, but I found those actual flexible ones.
Yeah.
You can just flex it and stick it on there.
Yeah, I have these flexes,
Yeah.
but in some cases, you can't get it started.
Yeah.
Except unless you do what you said, grind a little bit off the outside.
That's right.
Unless you grind so it'll fit next to it.
It's
Now,
gonna
I'm
be
just
stolen out my
grateful
back twice.
that there's nuts still on the security plate because sometimes I get computers.
Another really good tool, if you don't want to carry that 40-pound tool case in, is this is made by Exolite. I've had it almost as long as I've been in this industry.
They don't make it anymore.
Oh, they don't? Well, there's this tool, it's a
Trust
Phillips
me,
and
I love my Exolite back in the day.
and
I can't find
a
one.
flathead and a nut driver on both ends. So, and it's magnetic on the corner. Actually, a hollow point of a magnet. It's aluminum.
So I get a
There's magnet
computer,
in there.
and it looks like the security cover's still on, but then it hits me, and I hear
Hear that one nut bouncing around?
that one nut bouncing around, and this might be one of the smaller TOs that lose their machines on their back. So then I know right then and there, this computer's fried. Because they moved the game on its back, the nut found its way onto the conductive surface on the traces, powered it on. That's all she wrote.
You guys replaced monitors on blades yet?
Yes.
So they Loctited some of these Phillips head screws,
Oh my God.
and they're in a place. These up here are easy. The ones down here, not so easy because you're coming in on an angle. You gotta use a number 2.
A sharp number 2, brand new. And I prefer one on a big handle because I've used my impact and I've stripped that nut, I've sheared that nut right off. And then got half of a broken post sticking up through the hole. So I got a big screwdriver, number 2 bit, you know. Once I snap them, then they're broken free. Then I'm going to use my drill, pull them off.
But this one back here, you have to open the door to get to it. It's underneath here.
It's right away.
And then the brackets, you've got to take the brackets off the old monitor, put it on the new monitor. And you got to remove, we have this off, which this just popped off. There's a sleeve on here that holds it in place. You don't have to remove the sleeve, the locking sleeve, you can pop this off, be gentle with it. But this is a little bit tough because of the Loctite that they used on there.
I've had to Dremel a few to make a nice flathead and then snap them.
Yeah, if you strip it, now you're making it a flathead.
Might get the easy out. Some of you have the easy out bits that you can buy as seen on TV. You twist them out, but they're in there tight with Loctite. So just try and snap them loose first before you go twisting them out.
In our vehicles, we do a lot of work in the shop, but we have a long freaking screw, so where you can get some torque on it, because you got to push down and turn at the same time.
All right, so we're going to move on with WMS. Just like on the Bluebird and the regular blade, it's the left port. And on the computer, on the door, actually even says the different ports like there, J6. And on the Bluebird, it says Ethernet 1, Ethernet 2, or Ethernet 0, Ethernet 1, sorry. And I've had people do the whole thing, and then they're like, it's not connected, Sahibs don't see it, it's not getting searched. They were plugged into the wrong port. Now you can set it up on the other port. If this port is bad, ETH0 is bad, you have an option, and I'll show you later in this guide, for setting it up on ETH1. As long as you follow this.
If you do that, tag that cable.
You gotta tell side games?
Yeah.
Yes, because it has another MAC address.
You're changing the MAC address. Anytime you change a port or a computer, it's a new MAC address. When you do service calls and you replace a computer on any of this equipment, well, any WMS equipment, you have to give them the new MAC address. It's on the outside of a computer or in
On the
diagnostics.
32X's, the MAC address is actually right there, staring you right. And you get ETH0 and your ETH1. And then still verify it. TJ says he's actually seen somehow a MAC address change. Whether it changed in the actual machine or if it just somehow changed on Mary's end, something happened, and they said it changed.
Didn't he tell us that the other night, that it was that he had 03 and the actual machine was 30 when we were dealing with that?
Yeah, but that was clerical.
Oh,
The project sheet said 30, and it's 30 in the machine. Bill typed in 03.
Roger that.
Just had a little bit of dyslexia. So,
In 18-hour days.
well, TJ had that too. Again, the very first Valley Guide said OSCP. It's not OSCP, it's OCSP.
An hour later, I had the guy and I was doing my first G2S. I'm like, Phil, out of nowhere, I'm stuck right here. And we're going through everything,
Yep.
and it's like, OCSP? No. Because I'm reading back to him, and the guide says OSCP.
On the first
And-
guide, TJ and I put together.
As you're looking at the machine, when you're putting in those addresses, it's spelled out right above it what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So,
That's the S23 and the S32 backplane right there. And again, here's another example of it. Again, it's of power mount importance that it's lowercase letters. So then we'll start, a lot of this is really rudimentary, you guys know this. Start with touching, you go to your touch screen.
don't skip that part.
No.
It'll bite you in the behind.
When you're trying to do serial numbers and letters and the alphabet and everything, and it's off by a few centimeters, because the wrong letters, you don't see it till you've got the whole chain spelled out. You got one wrong letter, you gotta delete. So yeah, it's in your best interest to make sure you've got your calibration dead on. And after I give you this, I'm gonna show you guys a neat way to make sure that your calibration reaches all the way out to the outside edge. Guaranteed. So, then do your sound, and then again, you called side games. One of the first things they said if your AWS wasn't visible from them was, is your clock format 24 hour? Is your time right? Is it sent, is it
5
Chicago?
minutes.
WMS, it prompts you after USA, you choose Chicago, and then save, then set your time. Make sure you're in the 24-hour format, and that your date's correct.
Valley defaults, they're always 24 hour, but SG or WMS, you have to set change. It's defaulted on 12.
And just like SAS, you're gonna put in your serial number and your asset. That's pretty simple.
Early on, when you arrive at the location, you should be checking your work order, your go live sheet or what have you. You should verify the serial number, the gaming board number, the MAC address, and the position that it's in on the paper. If it's number 1 on the paper, it's SAS 1 or G2S 6. And it just goes right down the line. So wherever it is on that page, that's why sometimes when you get a swap, there's only one game on it, and it's in position 4 because that's SAS 4 or G2S 9.
You do set up your devices on WMS, unlike Valley and Twinstar. Printers are always Netflix. In our industry here, it's a generic protocol for this. The printers all they speak the same language, Netflix. So I like that about this. I wish they would have actually implemented that into the Twinstar. Been a lot easier than having 3 different printer. Then you set up your build. It's Mars build valve or JCM build valve. Now there's another Mars setting. There's another JCM setting. Don't use those. They're not going to work. The very first one you see for Mars will say Mars build valve. Then there'll be another Mars. Then you'll see another JCM. Then there'll be another second JCM that's a little longer chain of a name. Don't use that one. Use just a simple Mars build valve or the JCM build valve. And then this should auto-populate. Whether it's the OLED 13-button touch panel, it'll just say USB OLED touch panel, or it'll say touchscreen. If you have an S32 and this says USB OLED touch panel, and then you go out to the attendant menu or the main menu, you see selected button panel does not match. You've got that USB wires that we were talking about when we were going over the cabinets. I'm going to stop, go check out the USB cables. This will automatically, because it's USB, this one will automatically detect. Which brings up a good point. There's printers that have USB cords. Don't use them. Casinos might use them. We do not use the USBs on the Gen 5s, the Gen 2s, the Gen 3s. We don't use them.
I've been on the service calls and people have ran both. They plugged in the hard cable and then they plugged in a USB cable to the USB cable on the Gen 2s, and that created a lot of issues.
We only
It
use
created an
the,
expensive service call because I think it was at Quincy, Illinois that I went to, so
we
we
just
charged
do
by
the-
the hour.
just a parallel connection through the 18-pin Molex connector. So it's going to be Netflix, it's going to be Mars build valve, OLED button panel, or it's going to be touchscreen. Okay.
And you guys do know there are two separate RAM clears for WMS. One is the 1810
Or 1861.
1861, that's right, which is all the Bluebird or XDs, the original computer, this computer, and then the new series, the next orange-faced RAM clear has an orange sticker on it. Will only work. They're computer specific.
4011. Alright, so again, you'll have to populate that. It won't automatically populate G2S. You make sure you don't forget, and again, on this one we change, don't ask me why we don't do Valley, but we change on WMS, we have from the get-go. Jackpot and upper jackpot, both to 501. Don't forget, that's all you're touching on this page, those 3 things. The printer limit now at 10,000 is already defaulted to 10,000. 10,000 is what we brought Valley up to.
And we brought WMS down to because it used to be 9999999.
So, like I said, base and knob, jackpot, upper jackpot, save and then exit. Here's what I was talking about with Ethernet 0 or Ethernet 1. If you have no success 2 times in a row setting up everything on ETH 0, then you can give StyGames this MAC address, RAM clear, use this MAC address on the project sheet, populate these 2 boxes, leave these blank. If you populate these 2 boxes under Ethernet 1, and then still fill these out, on the further steps, it will actually show ETH1 at the top of the page, which in the next page it highlights that. It says ETH0. It would actually say ETH1. because that's where you programmed the cabinet address, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it was. And then you're gonna put the gateway, the subnet mask here.
And that's when you change to this port. If this port is bad, you can go over and move to Evo
I'll
one.
pause for a second. Is there any questions about that?
So it's give side names even at one MAC address?
Yes.
Grant clear and then populate the one number.
Yes.
And change the port cable to the right.
Yeah, you gotta move to that port.
It would have.
And then again, the stuff's in red because I had to go over it a million times on the phone. And I even broke this down to more than just add 5. I had to spell it out just because.
It was getting crazy.
We're in like week 28, 29, or whatever we are. We're 30 weeks into G2S. The first 15 weeks, I was having phone calls every day about this common error. They had the wrong numbers on their IP address. Now, if you notice how it says ET0, if you set it up on the other one, it would say something different there because your interface would have been changed on that previous step. But in most instances, you should have ET0. You should be going off of that left Ethernet port. You should be working off ET. There's your MAC address again. There's your web address. You're going to put that in again for your IP, for the cabinet. You're going to put in the subnet again. You do your 2 gateways. Then you'll hit host ID 1. The vendor is always othered. And then you'll populate this web address, which is kind of like what you put in the Valley. You put the G2S_6. But here you put the whole web address, including the 10.167.250.2, yada, 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 G2S_6. So, again, if you follow it step by step, and below each page, it's usually broken down and defined quite clearly.
This, just right here. On that page, you're only doing these 3 steps.
And your IP address.
Well,
And then you're gonna change this, and you change the host ID to 1, other, below.
so he actually took a picture of a live machine. Early on, the information that was in those boxes on the live picture didn't coincide with what was below, and it fooled every, and he spelled, don't look at the picture, look below, you know, but
No, people were going by the original pictures, and they've had to take new pictures. It was a disaster.
he
You
actually had to
notice
go
some of
on
these
my
pictures
equipment.
are actually camera shots. When you go back and you look at the Valley screenshots, they're much more resolute because they finally got a capture device for what, like for video games, you have a capture device that does a screenshot. So I just haven't had a chance to do that in the WMS cabinets to get nice pretty pictures.
Bring in a 13-year-old.
Right? He's gonna do a little YouTube tutorial on how to kill Zelda or whatever. So, OCSP settings and the certificate settings are actually broken up into 2 different sections in the WMS. You're gonna do part of it, the OCSP on this page, and this is where the limits come into play. And I didn't just circle and highlight hybrid for any good reason. It has to be hybrid. This one was already probably 700, I believe. 700, 8640. This is the one we ramped up to 3 weeks, 32,000. Change these. There's your web address that you're putting in. And then hybrid. And again, take your time. WMS, they might boot up faster, but you're doing 3 reboots during this whole process. As you go and do certain steps, you read on each page, there's certain stages that you reboot. You have to do the reboots. If you miss a reboot, it might not go live. You might forget. You might have forgotten that you didn't do the reboot. You thought you did, and yet it didn't come live. They don't see it. It's looping. Just brand clear and make sure that you go step by step through everything. This is one of the reboots right here, power cycle. Go ahead.
If you rebooted connected. So for example, if you forgot to move the cable, you
Yep.
plug it in yet,
Yep.
and you went right to the end, but you remember just before the certificates part, so those first two reboots are gonna be negated, or it'll be fine. There's been times we got like
It
right
hasn't
to the
needed,
end, and
it
then-
hasn't needed to talk yet, so it should be fine.
That's what I'm wondering, because I didn't know if it needed to be
Yeah.
talking those first two times in a reboot, or did it
That,
make any
that,
difference?
I'm gonna call that a hypothesis though,
It's like when you reboot it.
because I don't know what side games is doing on their end. And you're rebooting to refresh not only the EGM, but the site controller.
That's what I was wondering, if
So-
it had to be connected the entire time, or just at the very end?
You could try it. If you end up accidentally leaving, and you should, that should be one of the first things you do is move the Cat5 from the Delaware connector to its new intended port, ETA0.
Before you do that, me personally, when I'm at a site and I'm working with Joe or Jimmy, when we go, hey, everything's ready to down SAS, we unplug everything from the MCD.
Yep.
Then we unplug everything from the EGMs, and then we move the EGM cable to where it belongs, and then we plug them into Netgear. Do not leave a game plugged into
The Delaware connector.
the MCD and plug it into the computer. Not gonna be a good outcome.
No, you'll tear down the redemption terminal. You start plugging in SAS connections.
You'll start creating loops and some are powered and some are not. It's just not a good idea. Disconnect all your EGMs or all your Netgear before you move cables. And the way I do it is I unplug everything from the MCD first. So there's, I can't screw up. I can't screw up my EGM because there's something plugged in.
So, again, that was your IP setup. There was your OCSP setup.
And a
That was
power cycle.
second power cycle there. Then we're gonna go to the certificate setup. And Bob's son had a collector today down south. You're gonna put this address in. If everything previous to this is right, and you put this in and spell it correctly, and you get root.
And change this key bit size.
Yeah. That's before you hit this one.
I changed it.
I changed it anyways, but if you do any changes,
Right.
it will reset that back to
Right.
24. Get root. If it says invalid certificate, invalid fingerprint created, whatever you do, don't hit accept the fingerprint. If it gets an invalid fingerprint, you might have lost connection to site games, you might have had a bad cable. Again, some of the things we've been going over today.
A fingerprint will show up right here, all the way across, right underneath it. Just, there's not a box there, but a fingerprint, a long ID, it's a SHA ID, it's a lot of computer information. It's all spelled out right here.
If it says invalid fingerprint, hit the reject fingerprint. If you accidentally create it, you're gonna have to reject it. If you get a nice fingerprint, that fingerprint created, and it's this long chain of letters like Bob said, then you're gonna accept that fingerprint, then it'll go away, then you'll accept the certificate. Then you'll verify that this is the only thing you touch down here. You'll touch that and go from 1024, it'll bump up to 2048, and then you're gonna make sure, do not turn on the PUI, and then you're gonna generate a certificate. This one actually, I haven't had as many problems with. It'll tell you on the screen that it generated a fingerprint. You'll get a long chain of letters here, letters and numbers. That generates fine. Set, save.
So get root, accept certificate, key bit size of 2048, generate certificate.
There is no set.
Next.
Set, sorry.
There is no
This is
set.
exit. Exit, but it's gonna prompt you to save.
Exit, yes.
When you exit, it's gonna prompt you to save. You'll hit confirm save, and then you can step out. Don't power off. I've had people power off, they jump the gun, and they power off early. When you hit exit, it's gonna prompt you to save, see where it should prompt
Should
you
prompt
to
to
save.
save.
Then you can hit exit to game, then shut the computer door, shut the main doors, you can power cycle it, and it'll shut the doors. And if your computer's shut, it should come up. If your agent's there, it should come live.
Why do they sometimes after I do all that, when I'm finally talking to
First thing
Al,
they say is
say, hey,
reboot it.
go ahead and reboot it. I think
First
the
thing they
reboot-
say. Always.
Why would I reboot it again?
He just got back from lunch and he's tired.
It looks more
We
like he
don't
knows the
know.
answer, he's not gonna tell me.
We don't know.
No, if it's Al, it might be Al is getting caught up on looking at the site, make sure the site's set up right. Make sure, because they're not foolproof. I've gone to a few of these early on, the first 5 weeks, and they had the whole site built wrong. There's a different version of software called Pen Premium, and it includes Alice in Wonderland and Richie's, some stupid Richie's game, right? Whatever. They've got 2 special games that were called Pen Premium, they had exclusive rights to for over a year. Now it's available to everyone if they want to buy that as an upgrade. But if they set the wrong game set name in the system, or they had it, God forbid, they had it set as game set 4 from 4 years ago. They had it set in the system wrong. It's not going to pass what the G2S equivalent of CRC is. It's not going to pass the verification phase.
So just letting them start over.
And it lets them check, and they go back in, they start double checking their ends. And again, that's where I've talked to some of the people like Stephen Alvarado or Bill or Dan or Sabash, and they see on their end, oh, I got it. How's it now? What'd you do? What's up?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
There's been times where Wonder Woman didn't show up because they forgot to add the P on their end. The paperwork was correct, but.
Or reverse. People do that all the time. There's 2 different versions of Suite 5. One that does not have Wonder Woman, probably like almost $1,000 cheaper because of the licensing rights. And people are like, okay, I don't need Wonder Woman. Then they see how much better down the street the Wonder Woman's doing, and then they decide they want to pay for it. So, yeah, again, the name of the software, and it's going to increase as we get these new operating systems. You're going to get into that G2S menu, and you're going to see 5 different versions of V22 Suite 4 with 2.1, 2.0, 2.4, and then you're going to see all these new options, and people are going to start getting confused, or more confused, because they already have. People are already asking me. There's a new version of Wonder Woman already out that has a spin for cash fix. Spin for cash right now didn't have any necessarily glitches in it, but it wouldn't download, is what they were saying. That's their terminology, not mine. It wouldn't download. So they came out with a patch for Spin for Cash, but when they changed that, the signature to side games, the bin file changed.
The Shaw identifier.
So
you were.
it looked like a whole other set of software to cite games. And it was approved by GLI. It was actually interrupt tested. They forgot to add it into their back end at Wooddale. And it has to have a whole other designation. So now when you go on that project sheet, some of you do, some of you don't have to go on that project sheet. There's now Suite 5, P, underscore, ver, and then a D for version D. And at least they finally took my advice, because if any of you remember SAS, there was Suite 4 version 3, well, there was originally a Suite 4, and then they actually, that one was revoked.
That's correct.
That one was revoked because of the operating system. So then they came out with another version that was not even approved, and they came out with Suite 4 version 3. The next thing you know, the spreadsheets, the project sheet said Suite 4 version 4, and then they came out with another Suite 4 version 4 MGS.
You want to talk about a phone call nightmare that month?
No, that was a million different phone calls, because constantly was asked, CRC failed. And I'd even get Stephen Alvarado calling me, we got another CRC error. I'm like, Steve, says Suite 4 version 4, Suite 4 version 4 MGS. And I didn't have any insight, I didn't have any kind of input as to how they label their versions back then. And I have no idea whose idea it was to label that next version, Suite 4 version 4 MGS. It had a different machine game services file in it, and that's why they put MGS. But they should have labeled it Suite 4 version 5, so that it was cut and dry. Each different version had different hard drive and dongles, and so people call me up, and the only way I could tell is what's your dongle say. Your dongle says 304.289H. Well, that's Suite 4 version 4 MGS. Your dongle says 304.291E. Well, that's the first version that not revoked, Suite 4 version 3. Submit that. You won't have a CRC error. It was a cluster F. So now they asked me finally when we came out with this new version of G2S software, and I said, let's emphasize what's written on the drives. When you get a hard drive from me, and you get the Wonder Woman hard drive, it says, and Valley for Site Games is keen on using 304s. The hard drives now for this are 304, 896, original is C, and now the new fixed version is D. When they come out with the new OS, he may put a designator showing that it's a whole new operating system for each game, because the OS will work on Suite 4, Suite 5, for both 22 and 32. So like I said, that project sheet, the drop-down list is going to get really, really messy.
How many of you guys make project sheets for your company? There you go. So you're relying on a back-end office to choose the right information. That's why it's imperative when you get your project sheet and you get your software, you make sure that that's what you're doing. You're only as good as the people who are filling out that paperwork. And if they don't know if it's a 2.0 or a 2.1 computer, you don't have the right BIOS.
A lot of you have to be the one that scratches through the wrong software name on the project sheet and writes in that little box below what it really is after however long it takes to figure out. They've got a software mismatch, and Betson, ABS, they told me they've got the wrong thing listed on the project sheet. And you just write down the right name so that when they submit that project sheet later, they fix their paperwork in the site games end as well. But you guys will be the ones that have to fix it at the site at the street level. You'll have the wrong stuff written on the paperwork, and it won't pass software verification, and you'll have to figure out why. Sometimes it does come to, they can't figure it out at site games, and I get these calls from Stephen Alvarado. It's not working. It's not passing verification. And now with the increased amount of software versions out, it's going to be paramount. It's going to be so important that they choose the right software name in their submission. Otherwise, it just won't go.
It's pretty important for the operator to keep track of what CPU is in what cabinet at what location. And I can't stress that enough. Or somebody's going there with the wrong software because they're going to have the wrong BIOS.
That'll also increase the amount of names in that list because you have 2.4 for every different version of software.
Valley's going to get crazy or crazier. So, in my personal opinion, now there's ways to know, your front office can make contact with SGI. SGI has all that information. Whether they want to share it with you or not, that's up to them.
Yep.
But they have a printout, and they can look right at their computer screen. That's more of their front end office too, but they can tell if it's a 2.0 or a 2.1 computer. Or the easiest way to do is for your front end offices, just look at the last project sheet. It's the last project
valid
sheet should have
project
information
sheet.
on it.
If there was
It
a
may be crossed
repair,
out 6 times, but it should be written on the project sheet, legible, before the agent gets there. You guys need to show up at these locations. I don't know how many times I've showed up, and man, the agents are freaking livid that it's supposed to be here at 8 o'clock. I'm here, you're here, ABS is here, but there's no TO, there's nobody from from the operator. They show up 15 minutes late, it's close, it's not, these agents get stinking crazy with punctuality. And you should have, so when he gets there, he's gonna call scientific game and say, shut the equipment down. And boy, if it's not already, so what they started doing with G2S is they shut the equipment off at night. They fetch their meters. When you walk in at 8 o'clock in the morning, the machines are all broadcast disabled. Every one of them are broadcast disabled. That's a telltale sign that they've already fetched their numbers. If that location was supposed to open at 6 a.m., if that location was supposed to open at noon and you're there at 8 o'clock in the morning, somebody needs to verify with SGI that they fetched the meters. Because the games will show broadcast disabled because they're not supposed to come on until noon, because that's the liquor license is good for noon till 3 o'clock in the morning, what have you. So that's another thing. But you should have all the information. The serial number's wrong on a project sheet. It should be written out in the note section underneath that particular machine. The software's not right. You know the software. When Phil sends out software, every software box that we have it has a color-coded label on it. And there's the software identifier that actually matches the project sheet.
Any questions on G2S? I know we threw a lot at you guys, so don't hesitate. If there's any confusion, some of you have done plenty of G2S. You came from the Twinstar. You might have just came for a refresher. Some people are green and they absorbed a lot. Do you have any questions? Huh?
Give it to him. Actually, it was very good, thank you.
So Phil's on vacation, starting
Friday.
very soon. So he was kind enough to forward all the phone calls to me. So bear with us because it's summertime and then your company probably has already started sending people on vacation, allowing summer vacations. And our company's doing the same thing. People are taking summer vacations. We're really busy in our coin-op world too. So some of our techs are traveling around the country installing big game rooms. So then these two guys right
We
here
got
are-
a special guest host here. We got a special guest host here. This is my lead G2S guy right here.
This is Kyle.
He's been doing a lot of my G2S for, again, the smaller TOs rely on us to do them for them. And Kyle's been great. He gets them done by 12 o'clock because I'm like, what do you mean? I'm done. I'm done. So I love to hear that. He gets there, come on, we've got the valleys to do, and he's back by lunch. They're not there till 3 o'clock. I'm like, it's awesome, dude. Send you on 3 more tomorrow.
I'll take a seat.
Go ahead.
Good seeing you, man.
So, if there's no other questions, again, I'm gonna open the stage up for a few minutes, let you guys take a last look at the machines. If you have any other follow-up questions you wanna ask Bob or I separately, you don't wanna ask out loud, that's fine. But again, don't hesitate to call the hotline and ask a question. There are no stupid questions, only silly answers.
Yeah, we may give you a silly answer like, oh.
All right?
Thank you, guys.
And you guys, guard those pins with your life.
Share those pins with your comrades is what you need to do.
Guard those pins, because somebody's going to steal them from you like they did to me yesterday.